Lastly, we have the opposite of what we had above. We have arrows going opposite directions. Instead of connecting, they're going away from one another. So when you see this, the first thing you want to do is start with the word or, meaning it can go one way or the other. And then we just write these as if they're individual inequalities. So we can say, well, these are all the values less than -2, and these are all the values greater than +1. And that's it. That's the final answer. No fancy way of writing this, no combining the inequalities together like above. All right, let's head down to page 2. Let's solve and choose a description that best matches your answer. Okay, we can do that. Several ways of doing this. Let me show you both, just so you're comfortable with either way. We accept any form of a correct answer. Okay? You can do the algebra many different ways, but you do have to show the work. So first off, what if we just move the numbers to the right-hand side? So I'm going to add 22 to both sides. -6 plus 22, or 22 minus 6, same thing, will be 16. Bring down less than and 2x, and divide both sides by 2. Okay, 2 divided by 2 is 1, or 1x. Bring down the less than sign, and we have 16 divided by 2, which is 8. 8 is less than x, or 8 is less than all our answers. Okay. Likewise, I could move all the numbers to the right-hand side. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. That's generally what we do. But I'm also going to be subtracting 2x on both sides, so I have the variables on the left. So I have -6, plus 6 is 0, and 2x minus 2x is 0. Now I have -2x on the left. Bring down the less than. And -22 plus 6 is -16. So it's starting looking similar, right? And now when I divide both sides by -2, okay, I'm going to have to switch the sign because I divided by a negative. So I have +1, -2 divided by -2 is +1, so I have 1x. -16 divided by -2 is +8. So I have all the numbers are greater than 8. So you have to see that these are the same thing. If I solve the inequality correctly 2 different ways, you should get the same answer. So saying that 8 is less than all our answers is the same thing as all our answers are bigger than 8. So here we have all our numbers greater than 8. One flaw we have, when you have the variable on the left here, there's sometimes a tendency to say, well, the arrow always points on the graph the same direction in inequality. This would be incorrect. This is wrong. Okay? This is saying 8 is less than all our answers. So if 8 is smaller than all our answers, so we don't want to make that mistake. Simply saying that graph always points the same as the inequality sign is not right. This is saying 8 is always less than all our answers, which makes all our answers bigger than 8, same as this argument here. Alright, let's go down to number 8. So, in general, I follow the steps of let's get the variables to the left. So variables on the left equal to the constants, or just the regular numbers. And constants. There we go. So using this format, that means we don't want numbers on the left, and we don't want variables on the right. Okay, so over here you can see, well, we got variables on the left where we want it, but there's constant 8 here. So I'm going to do the opposite, a positive 8, and subtract 8 on both sides. So we have 8 minus 8, which is 0. And we have, let's see, let's just bring down the 3/4 m. So we have 3 over 4 m. And bring down the equal sign. And 5 minus 8 would be negative 3. Alright, so we have 3 over 4 times m. Okay, so we're going to multiply so that this equals 1. Remember, the goal is always to get one of the variable, either 1x, x, or m, 1m. So this means right here, 3 over 4 means times 3 and divide by 4. So we're going to do the opposite of timesing 3 and divide by 3. And we're going to do the opposite of dividing by 4 and multiply by 4. Another word for that is reciprocal. So that when we multiply 4/3 times 3/4, we get 1. So because the 4's cancel and equal 1, and the 3's cancel and equal 1. So left with 1m. Okay, of course we have to do the same thing on both sides. Multiply by 4/3. So we got negative 3 times 4 is negative 12. Negative 12 divided by 3 is negative 4. Or you can cancel out the 3's and you see we're left with a negative and a 4, so negative 4. You can always verify on all of these by doing a check. Does 8 plus 3/4 times our answer of negative 4, okay, does that equal? That's the question. Does that equal 5? Okay, does that equal 5? So we can do some order of operations. Let's see here. 3/4 times negative 4. Again, 4 is canceling out. So now we have a negative, a 3. So that's negative 3. Does that equal 5? And sure enough, it does. 5 equals 5. And that means our answer is correct. So before you turn in your quiz, if you have any extra time, do this check for every equation and inequality. Make sure it's absolutely right. You don't have to hope it's right. You can check. Okay, let's go to number 9. Okay, same idea. Some people start getting worried when there's fractions. Okay, we're still doing the same steps. Get the variables to the left. In this case, the variables on the left already. And get all the constants on the right-hand side. So the constants here are 5/6 and 3/4. I'm going to do the exact same steps I would do if they were just integers. So like here we had 8 plus 3/4 m equals 5, so I subtracted 8. It's the opposite of positive 8. This I just have 5/6. Opposite of 5/6 is minus 5/6. Both sides. And you notice I'm going to write it on the right side up here instead of below because I'm going to have to subtract these two. Same idea. 8 minus 8 equals 0. 5/6 minus 5/6 equals 0. So the algebra is the same. Now be careful here. Some people do this. Okay, the part that's incorrect here is that this is a negative 1/4 v. So you've got to bring down the negative sign as well. Some say, but that's the subtraction sign. But a subtraction sign is also a negative sign. Alright, so here we go. Let's go ahead and subtract these two. 3/4 minus 5/6. Okay, common denominator would be 12 because 4 and 6 both go into 12 evenly, and that's the smallest number that does that. So we have 12. Okay. So 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 3 is 9. And 6 times 2 is 12, so 5 times 2 is 10. So 9 minus 10 equals negative 1/12. So we have, this is equal to negative 1/12. Now you notice how I did all this work separate. It should not interfere with your equation in your algebra. This is an algebraic equation. This is arithmetic. from elementary school. You should always do this separate from your algebra. Alright, so let's finish this up. Like before, we had a fraction. We're going to multiply by its reciprocal. So we have 4 over 1. Again, be careful. We have to decide, well, this negative should go in there as well. So I'm going to put the negative on top. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. Negative 4 over 1. And then 4's cancel out, and the negatives cancel out as well, equal positive. And notice how I'm multiplying here. This isn't subtraction sign. I'm multiplying by this. So I have positive 1 now, which equals, let's see here, 4 and 12. 4 goes in 12 3 times. And then again, the negatives cancel out. Negative times a negative is a positive, so I have 1, positive 1 over 3. And again, if you have the time, you go back and check that to make sure it actually works. Here we go. Let's keep this going. Lots of parentheses. Be careful here. What number is in front of these parentheses? Okay, you got to see that the number 4 is what's inside. Negative 4 is what's in front of the parentheses. So you got to do negative 4 times 9 and negative 4 times 3w. So we have 12w minus 18 and negative 36 plus 12, because the negative times the negative is positive, and that equals the right hand side. So we have multiple variables and constants on one side. Before you do anything else, we want to combine these together. So I'm going to circle the variables and combine those together. Okay, so we have 12w, 12w, that's 24w, 12 as well as 24. And then for the constants, we'll have negative 18, okay, and negative 36. Okay, so negative 18 minus 36 is negative 54. Bring down the equals negative 10. Okay, now let's get those variables to the other side. Add 54. I'm sorry, get the constants to the other side. Add 54 to both sides. There we go. So we have 24 times what? Times w equals 44. Okay, let's divide both sides by the coefficient, 24. Now here's where some of you get worried. Okay, it's okay to have fraction answers. That's okay. Just make sure you fully reduce it though. So we can see that this will reduce a little bit. If we divide top and bottom by 4, we'll have 11, and 44 divided by 4 is 11, and 24 divided by 4 is 6. Okay, and that's our final answer. And let's continue this. We got some parentheses. Let's do that first. So half of 16 is 8. Half of negative 4 is negative 2. Oh, and let's bring down the left-hand side. Good. And let's see. Variables to the left, right? So let's cancel this out. Make it a 0. I'm going to add the same thing on both sides. And now let's, at the same time, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. There we go. There's all our algebra, what we did to both sides. Okay. These both equal 0. So we'll have 9n equals 20. Divide both sides by the coefficient. 20 over 9, that's fully reduced. So we just say, well, 9's cancel out, n equals 20 over 9. There we go. Let's go to number 12. We have 15p and 6. Bring down everything else, plus 7, which is less than or equal to negative 32. And once again, on the same side, we have two constants. So let's bring those together first. 6 and 7 is 13. And just bring down everything else. 15p less than or equal to negative 32. And now let's go ahead and move the constant to the left side. We got minus 13, minus 13. Okay, got 0. 15p is less than or equal to negative 32 minus 13. That'll be negative 45. And divide both sides by 15. Negative 45 divided by 15 after reduce it is negative 3. Now, do we change the sign? Because there's a negative here. No, don't change the sign here. You only change the sign when you divide by a negative. So we divided by a positive 15. So keep the sign the same. If these were negatives, then we'd be flipping the sign. Okay, 13. Okay, solve and graph. Got to do both. Okay. So constant to the right. 0. Bring straight down, negative 6n. Straight down, we got less than, negative 18. And here we are going to divide by a negative. So we have n greater than, switch the sign, positive 3. Negative divided by negative is positive. Okay. We can pick any value here. I'm just going to pick this one, say that's 3. We got an open circle. And all the numbers bigger than 3, greater than 3. Okay, so what divided by negative 11? Minus 5 is greater than or equal to negative 7. Let's do the opposite. Add 5 to both sides. Okay, 0. Bring down m divided by negative 11. Bring down greater than or equal to. Negative 7 plus 5 is negative 2. So what divided by a negative 11 is negative 2. To solve that, let's multiply both sides by negative 11. Multiply by negative 11, both sides. So the negative 11s cancel out. And we have m. And then we have negative 2 times negative 11 is positive 22. And again, we multiply by a negative, so switch the sign. So all the values less than 22, I'm just going to pick any point here and just put a 22 here. And close circle, and it's everything less. There we go. Do a few more. This is an and. So generally those are going to be a connected graph. So remember that and compound inequalities usually connect. And then or compound inequalities usually go away from one another. Most of the time. So let's go ahead and solve these. Add 2 to both sides. X is greater than 6. And, so we got all the numbers bigger than 6. Okay, and we want all the values that are less than or equal to 9. So all numbers bigger than 6 and less than or equal to 9. Okay, so I can say this is, let's see, 6, 7, 8, this would be 9. And to be bigger than 6 but less than 9, that's everything in between. There we go. Everything between 6 and 9. Of course, this is equal to, right? Less than or equal to. Circle that in. We can also write this as a in-between statement. So I want all the values x between 6 and 9. Okay. Less than for both of them, less than or equal to here. That's a solid. So this would be your final inequality, and this would be your final graph. So anything with an and, always write like this as your final answer. Okay. Ors, on the other hand, we're just going to write the word or between our two inequalities and then graph them separately. So we have x is less than -3, and we have x is greater than 3. So let's say this is 0 in the middle. Let's be -1, 2, and -3. 1, 2, and +3. So we want everything that's less than -3, everything that's greater than +3. Do yourself a favor. Afterwards, check just to make sure that your open and closed circles are correct. That's one of the easiest things to miss. Okay, let's get down to page 3 now, number 17. This is already in in-between format. So I'm going to break this up into two inequalities. The first one is just going to be this. I'm going to solve that. Then I'm going to solve this one. So you can see how they both include the middle, the y over 2, y divided by 2. So first I'm going to have y less than what number divided by 2? And solve that by multiplying both sides by 2. -16 less than y. Then I'm going to solve what number divided by 2 is less than 3. Notice how the algebra is the same here. I'm going to multiply both sides by 2. Same as I did over here on these two. So again, cancels out. We got y less than 6. So we can bring these together as an in-between statement. So we got -6 less than y less than 6. Which, in other words, all the numbers between -16 and 6. Okay, let's see here. How can we graph this? We can graph this a variety of ways. I'm just going to put these numbers here. How about -16 here and 6 here? Okay, I could figure out all the values in between, but for a test, we don't really need to do that. Okay, go ahead and connect these because it's an in-between statement. Okay, these are connected. And again, go back and check just to make your inequalities, make sure they're the correct ones. So we got less than or equal to, and wait a minute. Let's see here. So you can see, yeah, it's so easy to miss that one little line underneath, right? So that changes your answer just a little bit. Just want to do that on purpose to make sure. You can see how easy it is to forget, and you might have just looked at that and agreed with me or just copied it down, and you can see how fast it is to make a little mistake. So be careful. Always check afterwards. The other one is just less than, and that's correct. Okay, translate and solve. Time to read directions. So we got two steps. First translate and solve. Got to do both. Okay, the sum of 5 times a number and 6 is 11. Okay, 5 times a number and 6, the sum, so that's addition, is equals 11. And then go ahead and solve it. So we've done these already so far. We got 5 times the number equals 5. Divide both sides by 5. So n equals 1. And just like before, we can check those to make sure they are correct. The difference, subtraction, of 10 and twice a number is -14. So we have 10 twice a number is -14. We can go ahead and solve this, same routine. Constants to the right-hand side. 0, -2 comes down, equals -24. Divide both sides by -2. So we have n equals positive 12. Okay, there we go. Time for some word problems. Angelica earned $385 last month. Her hourly wage was $6.50. She received a $55 stipend. Stipend is like a one-time paycheck. Okay, write and solve the equation to find how many hours H she worked last month. So they give us the variable, tell us to write and solve an equation, which means you must use an equation. So your first step is to write something with an equal sign. So we know everything added up. We're adding a bunch of stuff up. We're adding up the wage and the stipend, that one-time check, and we know that equals $385. So the wages, she gets $16.50 per hour. Every hour she gets that much. So two hours will get $33. For 4 hours, add another $16.50. So it's going to be $16.50 times however many hours she works, plus that $55 stipend. All that's going to add up to $385. Okay, now I can go ahead and solve it just like we would above. Minus 55 on both sides. There we go. And 16, I can abbreviate that to 16.5H, same thing. Which equals 385 minus 55 is 330. Divide both sides by 16.5. H equals 20 hours. And definitely include units on your work. And we could also write a conclusion sentence saying Angelica Angelica worked 20 hours last month. Alright, so here we go, next one. Ariel has at least $32 in her purse. She spent $19 to get her nails done. Write and solve and graph an inequality to show how much more Ariel can spend so she can buy lunch. I only have, let's see here, $32 total, at least. So at least, that means I have $32 or more. Very important to understand. At least means that much or more. Okay? So we got nails plus lunch, and that's going to be bigger than or equal to $32. So the nails again are $19, and we don't know what we can do for lunch, so I'm going to use a cursive L. And when we subtract 19 on both sides, let's go ahead and do this below. We'll have a lunch, 32 minus 19, that would be 12 plus 1, 13. There we go. So we can just find 13, and we can put this almost anywhere, and it's going to be bigger than, there we go. Okay, let's go up here. Okay. Isaac shares a cell phone plan with his brother. Can use no more than 9 gigabytes of data per month. So far, he has used 4 gigabytes this month. Right? And solve and graph an inequality to show how much more data Isaac can use for the month. Okay, so break this down. No more than 9 gigabytes. No more than 9 gigabytes. Okay, we have to know that means, well, we better be less than or equal to 9. We don't want to go above 9. Okay. So far it's used 4 gigabytes. So we got what we used plus how much we have left. Okay. So we use G for how much we have left. So solve this. We have G must be less than or equal to 5. So this is a lot of writing, but basically this says, well, you've already used 4. You can't go over 9. So how much can you use? Well, you can use 5 or less. Okay? And then, of course, write it as an inequality. You must follow the directions when they say write, solve, and graph an inequality. Okay, so there's many ways to show this, but there are fewer ways to show this algebraically using an inequality. So don't get fixated on, well, I know it has to be 5 or less. Okay, that's fine, but write it out as an inequality. And of course, go ahead and graph it, and we have 5 gigabytes or less. That way we don't go over 9 total. Okay. Linda, Sean, Maddie are cleaning the garage. Sean cleans 3 more hours than Maddie. Linda cleans the garage twice as long as Sean. Altogether, they can clean the garage in 13 hours. How many hours each of them will spend cleaning the garage? Okay, define a variable. So first, I'm going to just say Sean cleans 3 more than Maddie. Okay, so S is Maddie plus 3 more hours. Okay. Linda cleaned the garage twice as long as Sean. So L, Linda, equals 2 times what Sean did. Okay. And then it goes all together. So the only variable not left over here is what Maddie worked. So I have my equation. I know it's going to be what Maddie plus Sean plus Linda. Okay, they all worked 13 hours. 13 hours. Maddie, I don't know. Sean, S, was 3 more than Maddie. Okay, so you can see how I'm going to write everything using M. Okay. Linda was 2 times Sean. Now I don't want to put 2S. I want to use the fact that, well, S is M plus 3. So I'm going to put plus 2 times M plus 3. And all this equals 13. So you can see my variable is Maddie, what Maddie worked. Hours that Maddie worked. So I'm going to write Maddie hours. Okay. Key thing here is that you can start here, but your equation that you want to reach has to have only one variable. Then we can go ahead and solve that. So I have M plus M. Okay, got a little bit of algebra here, distributed here. So I got 2M plus 6. I'm going to bring down everything else. M plus 3. Okay. That equals 13. And we can add them all up. We'll have M plus 2M, 4M. And 3 plus 6, which is 9. That equals 13. And now we can solve it algebraically. 4M equals 4. So it looks like Maddie worked only 1 hour. Good. Now this reminds you below, when you see all this, like, well, wait a minute, I got M equals 1. What's all this? Well, remember the directions say how many hours did each of them work? Each of them. So there's 3 people. We know only one of them right now. Maddie, M equals 1. And you can see this is why we define a variable at the beginning. M stands for Maddie hours. So when we get down here, we know, well, here my answer is only for Maddie. But Sean and Linda, let's go back to where we started. Sean is 3 more than Maddie. So Sean is going to be 4 hours. And then we have, let's try this. There we go. And we have Linda, which is 2 times as many hours as Sean. Okay, so Linda must have worked 8. 2 times as much as Sean. And please check your answer. It says they worked 13 hours altogether, which means your answers here should add up to 13. 8 plus 4 plus 1 is 13, so good. So you can always check and make sure your final answer does make sense. Do a few more. Okay, putting the fence around a house. The width is 32 shorter than the length, so we got a bunch of fence. We got lots of fence all the way around. All the way around. Okay, so it does say it's rectangular, so we know if this side is, L feet long, we know this side's L feet long. And if this side is 32 less than the length, so this side's also 32 less than the length. So you can see we only have one variable here, so that's going to be L, and that's going to be the length. Make sure you write this out. L is the length. Okay, write an equation. So perimeter you have to know. That means it's like walking around the fence. How many feet would it be total? So if we walk this side, we know this side is L feet long. Let's see, squeeze it in here. And this side is 32 less than L. So add that. And then now we're over here walking this way, another length of L. And then walking right here, so it's L minus 32 again. And this adds up to 336. There's our equation. Go ahead and solve it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 L minus 64. Right, add 64 to both sides. Okay. So we know 4L is equal to 400, which means L is 100. Okay. So the length, L, remember L is the length, so L, the length here is 100 feet. Okay. And the width, go back to the picture, is L minus 32, which would be 68 feet. And we can check that out. Let's just confirm that that's our answer like we did before. So if this is 100, this is 100, this is 68, this is 68, okay? And yeah, if you do the math, that will add up to 336 total. So always make sure your answers do make sense. Okay, let's do a little solving for y, number 25. So we want to get this by itself. So we have a 2x, and it's minus 7y, so we're going to have 2. Move this 2x to the other side. What we're solving for is the same thing as get it by itself. So to get this by itself, you got to do 2 things. Get rid of the 2x, get rid of the negative 7. So first step, add, subtract, get rid of the 2x. Negative 2x plus 7, and then divide by the negative 7. Okay, make sure you distribute. So negative 2 divided by negative 7 is just 2 sevenths, positive. And 7 divided by negative 7 is negative 1. There we go. set up a proportion and solve. Okay, so we have a couple ways of doing this. There's lots of different ways of doing this, but we can do height over base, or the bottom. We got a little triangle and a big triangle. So the height of the little over the base of the little equals height of the big over base of the big. Go. To solve, a couple ways of doing this. You can do cross multiplication though. One way. So we have 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 7x. Solve that. Got 3x plus 6 equals 7x. And I'm going to move this to the other side, move the variables to this side. So we got 6 equals 4x. Divide both sides by 4. And we have 6 divided by 4 is the same as 3 over 2. Okay, so over 1.5. But 3 over 2 is fine. 3 halves. Okay, just a few more to practice with. Again, set up a proportion and solve. So same thing again. I'm going to do it a little different this time though. I'm going to do, let's do the heights as one fraction. Or sorry, yeah, one ratio. So w over w minus 3 equals the bases, 4 over 8. Now if you set up a different way, you'll still get the same thing. Lots of different ways of doing the same problem. So we have 4 times w minus 3 equals 8w. There you go, distribute. And let's subtract w 4w on both sides. So we got negative 12 equals 4w. Divide both sides by 4, and we'll have w equal to negative 3. There we go. Okay, lastly, we got a pole and a stick that both cast a shadow, set proportion, and solve once again. So they give us a lot of values. There's x, it's 90 feet. This is 3 feet and 4 feet. Okay, so we have x over 90 is equal to 3 over 4. A little more straightforward, so we have 4x equal to 270. Divide both sides by 4, and x will equal 67 and a half, 66.5, and we're dealing with feet. There we go. Okay. So Amy ran the race at 10 miles in 1 hour. Find the rate for kilometers per minute. Okay, and they give us how many 5 miles is approximately 8 kilometers. We'll round it. That's okay. So let's start off with 10 miles in 1 hour. Now I'm going to use dimensional analysis. I need to do 2 things. I need to convert miles to kilometers. Let's drop in miles, got to end up kilometers. Those are 2 distance. units. And then I need to convert hours to minutes. Those are the two time units. So I got two conversions to do. And then my answer should end up with kilometers per minute. Okay. So kilometers on top, minutes on bottom. Per minute means over minutes. Okay. In 1 hour or per hour, over hours. Okay, so first let's use this and convert the distance units. So I'm going to convert miles to kilometers. Since miles is on top, I'm going to put the miles on the bottom here and kilometers on top. So since I want my kilometers to be on the top at the end, I want to make sure they're here. I want my miles to cancel out, so I want to make sure one's on the top, one's on the bottom. Okay. And then also I want to convert the hours to minutes. So same thing, if hours on the bottom, I got to put hours on top. And then now my minutes will be left on the bottom, and that's where I wanted my answer. So first I recommend you just get your units set up so you know that, okay, my miles are going to cancel out, and my hours are going to cancel out, and look, I'm left with kilometers on top, minutes on the bottom, and that's what I want in my answer. And then we can go through, put in our values. We have 5 miles for 8 kilometers. Over here we have 1 hour is 60 minutes. So we have basically 80 over 5 times 60 on the bottom, which is 300. And of course we want to divide that out and round it out, and that comes out to approximately 0.27 kilometers per minute. Good. Okay. Lastly, let's set up this proportion. Small airplane is scaled so that every 2 inches, okay, I'll write this down as I go, so 2 inches represents 75 feet. 75 feet, okay. Which proportions could solve to find the actual distance represented by 11 inches? So remember, we want inches on top, right? Because that's what we did on the first one. So 11 inches on top over how many feet? Okay, so does anything match this exactly? It looks like the first one does. That's exactly what we have. Now, how do we know if the others are okay as well? So here's what you want to do. You're allowed to think of it as a game that you can switch any diagonal, and that's considered to be the same. So if we switch these two, 11 would be down here, right? And 75 would be up here. And we'll still get the same answer, because remember when we solve this, we just multiply the diagonals. So it doesn't matter where I put the numbers, I'll get the same answer if I do 75 times 11 or 11 times 75. So you can see here, okay, 2 over 11 equals 75 over x. Okay, that's right here. And is there a way to just move diagonals and get this right here? And you can see, well, here the 2 and 11 are across from each other diagonally, but over here they're not diagonally across, which means there's no way we can rearrange this really so that they're going to be equal. So let's see here. 5, yeah, so I don't believe that's going to be a yes. There we go. Another way of looking at it is see if it makes sense. So there's 2 inches over how many feet? Is that proportional to 75 inches to 11 feet? And yeah, that doesn't really line up because we know that feet should be with 75, not 11. So yeah, the units do not work. Okay, and that concludes the review. Remember, you need to know how to do all these on your own. This tutorial is not for you to write all the answers down and fill out the review and say you're done. You have to practice again and again to make sure you get it. Okay, make sure you show all the algebra. Every step is required to get full credit. On the word problems that have multiple steps, make sure you actually do all the steps. So step 1, define a variable. Make sure you say m equals, what it stands for. Write an equation. Make sure you write an equation. And you must use the bullet points that you've been given. And of course, at the end, make sure your answer makes sense. If it says they add up to 13 hours, make sure your answers add up to 13 hours. Otherwise, there's something wrong. And so you should not turn in your test until you've checked all these and made sure everything is right. Okay, good luck. Sure you'll do great.